Hi everyone, and welcome to Fronts and Factions. I'm David, and this is part one of a three-part series where we're going to go over problems and solutions for Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. This is an overall great adventure I'm in the midst of running right now, currently in the second to last chapter. And for those of you running and starting this adventure, I wanted to give you some specific advice. Should make this run smoother and feel just a little bit better. I'm going to be doing 3 videos on this topic. First one, this one right here, is going to be going through character creation, character progression, and the free feats that this module provides. It provides 2 sets of free feats, and we're going to talk about that today. The second video is going to go over plot, various plot issues, ways to foreshadow better. And then the third video is going to deal with specific encounter issues, just general encounter balance, which encounters might be a little bit too easy, a little bit too challenging, and some suggested modifications that might make that run a little bit smoother. That one is going to go in the end because I'm going to wait until I have done all of the encounters before I make any suggestions on any encounters that I haven't run yet. All right, so first set of problems, character creation, character progression, and free feats. There's a set of a few problems that happen right here in the beginning. Before you even get into the adventure in the book, there's a whole section about character creation, some new backgrounds, some new feats, and how that all works together. And a lot of the purpose of that is to enable characters to be part of the Knights of Solamnia or the Mages of High Sorcery, which are 2 organizations that exist in the setting that are both fairly important, so that players can feel like they're part of that organization and have that mean something, right? And that is very understandable, and I like the intention, but there's some implementation issues. First problem, though, actually just has to do with the character origin and the character motivation. So the beginning of this adventure starts with the funeral, which I think that's a great start. And it's assumed that all players come from other regions, other parts of the world, and travel here for this funeral, and that everybody has known this person who has passed away. And I think that that's an unnecessary restriction that also makes it hard for the characters to care. I think that they do a good job of making you care about the village that you go to as quickly as possible, but it's an unnecessary hamstringing for character motivation. So first off, I would just say in terms of fixes for this, feel free to have characters be from Vogler. Feel free to have characters be from Calaman. Not everybody needs to be best friends with the person that's died. You can have different characters have different character motivations, and I think that that will create a lot better party dynamics because there's going to be some people who care a lot more about Vogler or about Calaman because that's their home. And it also enables them to have NPCs that they have history with. Partly with that, you can also feel free to have characters have history with the NPCs, even if they're not from that location. In the game that I'm running, one of the characters is part of the mercenary group, and so has a rich history with some of the NPCs, Jaev and Cudgel, because of his backstory. If you have someone who wants to be a Knight of Solamnia, they could be another squire under Beckett alongside Darrett, and then that way their relationship with Darrett and with Beckett are super meaningful. Feel free to just pay attention to all of the NPCs that are in those regions, and feel free to have your characters be from places that will actually be addressed in the adventure. That way their backstory is more meaningful. Versus if you have them be from all over the world, their backstory isn't really going to come up very much. Second problem, is character progression. So you could think of the different character progressions as kind of being through 4 different tracks. 2 of them I've already brought up, which are very much the reason for a lot of this extra character sheet stuff, which is the Knights of Solamnia and the Mages of High Sorcery. So those are 2 of those tracks. Knight track, Mage track. There's also a free feat called Divinely Favored. In this world, the gods are coming back to a world that they have abandoned functionally. And so you could also think of there basically being a cleric track. And then there's kind of a catch-all other track of, I'm not one of those other 3. And it's kind of a catch-all. And all of these tracks have their own problems. So let's go through them one at a time. The Knight track, you have a squire, feat at level 1 is suggested, and then being part of one of the knightly orders at level 4. There is nothing in the module that enables you to join a knightly order. There are no Knights of Solamnia NPCs other than the one right at the very beginning, who does not hang out for super long, although you can adjust that if needed. And so it kind of brings it up in the beginning and then just kind of drops it. And in the adventure yourself, if you're a Knight of Solamnia or you have a Knight of Solamnia player, you might be like, hey, I got all of this stuff that says I'm supposed to do all this stuff, and where's the stuff for me, right? Where am I getting knighted, right? Which is a big part of that character fantasy, right? And even poor Derek, the NPC who's going along that journey, gets left high and dry also, right? Which is obviously kind of silly. So let's go and bump that up. And a big thing with that is just having more engagement in the adventure. If you're connected with Becklin in the beginning, if you are one of her apprentices alongside Derek, this is easily accomplished. If you are not associated, then there's lots of other opportunities. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler warning. So far, nothing's been really relevant, but spoiler warning. If you're playing in this, go ahead and skip later, send this to your DM. So in the adventure, Becklin is captured or killed, and you have the opportunity to go and rescue her again. And that would be a really cool opportunity to do that, and then have her go and knight you if she's your commander. If she's not your commander, then one thing that I think would be really cool is to have, there's an NPC who's captured in the Wheel Watch Keep, and I think it would be really funny because he's kind of old crotchety. He's got this Kender in there who's been annoying him, and his name's Lannel Brent, and the Kender keeps calling him Flannel. I think the idea that you go and rescue this guy and then you find out that he's an old knight who just is kind of washed up and doesn't really care that much about his knightly order anymore, and then kind of gets revived and rescued and is now feeling all re-impassioned and is of the knightly order that your Knight of Solamnia wants to be and can go and knight them. I think that that's hella cool. And I think that that would be a really powerful moment that your Knight of Solamnia player or players would really enjoy. So that's just one kind of, or I guess two possible suggestions. Second track is the Mages of High Sorcery, and This one, they do a much better job of having NPCs in the adventure. There is a mage in Calaman named Wyhan who the Mage of High Sorcery interacts with and gets a provisional robes, and then there's a second NPC later in the adventure, again spoilers, a second NPC later in the adventure, right, who actually gives that test of high sorcery. Problem is that this isn't really synced up with the free feats, right? You're not actually joining an order until you're about level 9, but you're getting your free feat that says you're already part of the order at level 4, right? That doesn't really make any sense, right? So that's the problem with that. Solutions for that track is change where the free feats are. I actually recommend doing this for everybody. The adventure says give the free feats at level 1 and level 4. I highly disagree. I think you should give them out at levels 2 and levels 5. It will fix a lot of problems and will give you more opportunities to have those free feats make plot sense and character arc sense. An example of the first one with the knights, you can have them go on your prelude adventure. You run into a knight, and you're like, I'm gonna be a knight later, right? You go up to level 2, you now have that initial feat, and then at level 5, you rescue Lanel Brint or whatever. You get knighted at level 5, bam, perfect. For the mages, your prelude adventure involves like becoming an apprentice. You don't get that until after you do that prelude adventure. That makes sense. Level 2. And then you meet Wyhan around level 5 in Calaman, and so that gives you the opportunity where Wyhan goes and meets with you and says, hey, there's not going to be time to give you this test. I'm going to give you a provisional robes, which happens already. And then that way those provisional robes line up with you get your free feat, right? That works so much better. The only issue that creates is we still have the problem of we have this really cool moment for the mages of high sorcery where they get that test much later in the adventure, and that doesn't give you any weight. And I think with that, I think that there's an aesthetic thing that would help, and then a mechanical thing that would help. The aesthetic thing that would help is that the robes that Wyhan give them show that they're not really part of the orders yet. The color is like an outline, it's not filled in, or there's some sort of stripe or indicator that this is a provisional mage of high sorcery. And then when you meet Dalamar notices that, Dalamar calls that out, says, hey, you're not even a real mage of high sorcery yet, kind of, is a little bit rude about it. And then when that later moment happens, your robe magically changes, and now it's just like any regular one, right? And then you meet, and then you can even meet Dalamar as you're leaving the northern wastes, and he's like, "Well, what happened to your robe?" Right? And that would be a really, really cool moment. I also recommend that based on what kind of mage of high sorcery you are, recommend that later NPC goes in. Gives them some sort of magic item that makes sense for their character. This module, we'll go over this a little bit more in another video. Module is very stingy with its magic items because it is so fast-paced. So I recommend that you go and take that opportunity to go and give them something cool. So that's the mage track. Cleric track is probably it's barely a track. It's very bare bones. It gets 1 free feat, and they put it as a level 4 free feat called Divinely Favored. And it gives you some free spells, and it's that you're a connection with the god. And this is another one where changing the levels makes this work a lot better. I actually recommend that you have this be a level 2 feat, and you have this go along with the prelude adventure where they find that old god, right? I think that works great. You're level 1, you don't have the free feat yet, you go on this prelude adventure, you find this god that you have a connection to, you level up to level 2, and you get your divinely favored feat. I also think that giving people access to augury early in the adventure is just great. I did it for one of my characters, and it worked wonders early on, because that character was just able to say, hey, what do we do? You know, should we do this or should we do that? Like, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? And getting that guidance early on in the adventure in Vogler really clutch. And so I highly recommend that you make that a level 2 feat instead of a level 4 feat. They still don't get another one. They don't get one at level 5. You could homebrew one. I didn't. I just gave them access to get another one at level 5. As far as other things that you can do to make things character meaningful, again, giving them that augury right at the beginning will be super nice. And then just make sure that you are adding in opportunities for them to interact with their deity over the course of the campaign. I have my player who took the divinely favored feat. When they get to the Temple of Paladine, I fully plan on there being a other section, right? Because he didn't pick Paladine or anything, but a different section where there's another altar to his deity, and he's going to go and get something special as a result of that. I think it's completely appropriate to go and give them those opportunities. Lastly, the other category, they just really get the short end of the stick. The way it's written, they get 2 options at level 1, skilled and tough. That's it. At level 4, they get 4 options. They're good options, but you know, nothing to write home about. It's a mobile, sentinel, warcaster, and alert. Sorry. Those are good feats. I mean, good choices. If you're only going to give 4 choices, I think they're good. But, you know, it would be easy for players to be like, oh man, these guys are getting these custom feats that are specific to this campaign, and I'm getting a handful of choices. So I highly, highly recommend, I'll put in the video description, my expanded lists that I gave for both of these levels. I gave a lot more options, and I think especially at the level 2, you don't want to let them pick anything. They're going to pick all the standard nonsense. They're going to pick, you know, Fey Touched and Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master and Polearm Master and all that junk, right? You know that's what they're going to do. So don't let them do that. But feel free to go and give them a pretty hefty list of feats that players don't often use, right? That are fun. One of my players picked the healer feat, which I've never seen get taken, and he's been using it and it's been great. It gives a good amount of healing in between encounters. You know, saves spell slots for the divine casters because they're not having to use as much resources in between encounters. It's great. You know, something like Skulker, right? A lot of feats that are good, but usually not good enough for anybody to bother taking them. Those are great options for level 2 feats, especially if they're not half feats. I would be a little reluctant to give any options of half feats for the level 2. And since we're bumping the level 4 one up to a level 5 one, I'd say let them pick whatever they want. You could maybe not include some of the really busted ones that you know everybody's going to take. I let them do it. You know, I let people go and take Sharpshooter at level 5. It's level 5. It's not gonna break anything. You're already going to need to adjust the counterbalance anyway. So, and then along with that, feel free to have that level 5 involve some training, right? At that point, they've been in Calaman for a while. You know, how did you get this free feat? who did you train with, right? Maybe ask them that in advance, right? Hey, there's going to be an opportunity for a free feat. What is your character interested in learning? How, have them earn it, right? There's plenty of competent NPCs in Calaman. You can absolutely have them earn that feat by training. Maybe find a mentor in Calaman that can go and teach them something. I think it would be really cool. I tried to do it, but I definitely could have been more successful on that one. Once you're at level 5, as long as you have given everybody an opportunity to get those mentor characters to feel like their character progression is meaningful and that their free feats connect in with their characters in meaningful ways, then you've done a good job. Point of this video was to make sure that the mechanical benefits of these free feats and what characters are picking early on and their character fantasies, we want to make sure that those are meaningful, that the characters feel like they matter in a story way and not just in a mechanical way. And we also want to make sure that everybody's feeling like they're on equal footing and that nobody else is getting extra perks that they're not. Thank you so much for watching this. In part 2, we're going to go over plot and story and go over some of the bad guys, how to foreshadow them better, what's already working really well that we don't want to mess with, what doesn't really work well at all that we want to mess with a lot. So with that, thank you all so much for viewing. I hope you have a great rest of your day.